Welcome once again to Circle Time. And the last book I have for you this week on our theme of water and the water cycle is called Water Dance. I'd like you to listen to why the author calls this the water dance. I'd like you to listen again for where in the environment around us in the different geographical areas we find the three states of water. Where the water comes from, where it goes to, and how the water is a powerful force in our world. This book is written by Thomas Locker, and let's see what he has to teach us about water today. Water dance. Some people say that I am one thing. Others say that I am many. Ever since the world began, I've been moving in an endless circle. Sometimes I fall from the sky and I am rain. And what's that endless circle that never stops? That's right, it's the water cycle. When God made the earth, he knew we would need water to survive and to thrive and be healthy. So we can see the water in its different states here. We see some mist or fog in the air. That's the water vapor. We see a lake where the water is liquid. We see clouds. So it has evaporated up from the lake into the air and water vapor and condensed again into droplets and drops that are collected in the clouds. So there's the three states of water in one picture. Sometimes I cascade, I tumble down over the moss-colored rocks, through the forest shadows. I am the mountain stream. Water is found in many different places in nature, in rain, and in streams. Here it is coming down the mountain valley in a stream or a river. At the foot of the mountains or the bottom of the mountains, I leap from stone to a cliff, spiraling and plunging. I am a waterfall. And there you can see the waterfall coming down the mountain and the big rocks, and swirling and dancing down to the river or the lake. You can also see how our artist, Thomas Locker, he's also the author and the artist. He's used pictures and colors to show us how water dances on the earth and how it feeds nature and makes it come alive. There's brilliant colors and pictures in this book. Here we see the blue of the sky, the light shining of the sun shining through the clouds, and the green of the hills. I wind through broad golden valleys, joined by streams, joined by creeks. I grow ever wider, broader, and deeper. I am the river. So it has come down in rain. It has come down the hill in a stream and a waterfall into a lake. The lake and the streams are joining. It's getting bigger and wider, and it's now a river. You can see how it's winding down further and further here in the river. I pass through a gateway of high stone palisades, leaving the land behind. Cool silver moonlight sparkles and dances on my waves. I am the sea. So it's gone from a stream to a river to a lake, and now it's, instead of that narrow path, winding path, it's opening up into the sea. The sun is shining on the waves, sparkling. You can see it's opened up there into a much bigger body of water. Drawn upward by the warm sunlight, what do we call that? Evaporation. In white silver veils, I rise into the air. I disappear. I am the mist, or a gas, or a vapor. And we can't see it anymore. In thousands of shapes, I reappear, high above the earth in the blue sky. I float. I drift. I am the clouds. So it's evaporated from the sea into a vapor, and now it's high enough that it's cooling down, forming droplets and drops, and filling up the clouds. So it's condensing. Carried by winds from distant seas, I move, growing heavier, growing darker, returning. I am the storm front. So there's the big, huge, heavy, dark clouds. At the wall of the mountains, I rise up as gleaming, power-filled towers. So now they're towers of clouds in the darkened sky, and that's called a thunderhead. I am a thunderhead, so you can see the clouds that are turning into big, dark towers called thunderheads. Do you think the storm is about to come? I blind the sky with lightning. The earth trembles with my thunder. I rage, I drench the mountainside. I am the storm. Can you see the dark sky being brightened up by the flashes of lightning? And can you hear in your imagination the thunder that comes after the lightning? Storms come, storms pass. I am the countless droplets of rain left floating in the silent air. I reflect all the colors of the sunlight. That's right. Those drops become prisms that bend the sunlight so we can see the colors of the rainbow. I am the rainbow. I am one thing. I am many things. I am water. Have you picked up on the many different ways we see water in nature? This is my dance through our world. The many different forms that water comes in, moving in streams, evaporating into the air, condensing into droplets, falling on the earth, collecting in clouds. It comes in so many different forms in different ways and moving always in the circle or in the cycle. So have you picked up on why this is called the water dance? This is my dance through our world. I am one thing. I am many things. I am water. And there's the beautiful world after the storm, and the sun has come out and it's sunset in the evening. And the sun is a brilliant bright orange, shining on the sea below and the mountains and the streams. I'm going to share with you a few facts at the end of this book about water. The water cycle. Water is so familiar that it's easy to take it for granted. Yet it is what makes the planet Earth special in our solar system from all the other planets. Water is the only thing on Earth that occurs in 3 different forms. At the poles, the North Pole at the top of our globe and the South Pole at the bottom of our globe, it is huge masses of ice. There's one state of water, ice. In lakes, rivers, and oceans, it is liquid. In the atmosphere, reaching upward for many miles, drawn upward by the air currents, it is vapor. appearing as clouds, mists, and fog. Where rain is plentiful, there are rich tropical rainforests with lush soil, broad-leaved green plants, and colorful birds. But when there isn't much rain, rain is scarce, deserts occur. We've talked about deserts, where cactus blossom in the sandy soils. There's not any grass because there's not much water. And lizards bask on the sun-baked rocks. Each of these different climates and the plants and the animals that live in the different areas, the rainforests or the deserts, live there and are influenced or adapt. Remember, we talked about how plants and animals have special adaptations or changes that allow them to live in an environment where there's not much water in the desert. So you'll see different animals and plants in the desert than you would see in the rainforest where there's lots of rain. So each of these climates, the plants and animals that live in such regions are influenced by how much water there is there. More than 70%, so if you had a pie and you just had maybe 1 or 2 pieces cut out of it and the rest was left with pie, that's about 70% of the Earth's surface is covered by water. And your body is also about 70% made up of water. That's a lot of water in your body and a lot of water in the earth. Water moves through an endless, that means it never stops, journey between the earth and the sky. Over and over again, the water cycle: evaporation, condensation. Evaporation from the sun, warming up the water, drawing it up into the atmosphere. It gets cooler as it rises, forms drops and droplets and clouds, and then comes back down again. Evaporation, condensation. Evaporation, condensation. So it's an endless journey between the earth and the sky. The power of moving water is one of the forces that shapes the earth. Water's moving force is called erosion. It slowly turns mountains into gracefully rounded hills. So when the water comes down over and over again, over years and years and years, it wears down the rock and makes the mountains smaller into hills. When it freezes, water can split huge boulders and carry stones and sand from the land to the sea. So you've been on a beach before. The rocks have been worn down by the water into sand. Sand is little pieces of rock broken up into tiny little pieces. Even the giant waterfalls are changed by water and slowly moved backwards upriver as the water erodes or breaks away the top of the rocks behind the waterfall. So eventually, after the water, powerful force of the water has been coming down the waterfall, the rocks behind it get worn down and move further and further backwards. Water is the sculptor. You know how a sculptor, an artist who's a sculptor, sculpts clay and makes things? Well, water sculpts the earth and changes the shape of the rocks. It creates canyons, gorges, and waterfalls. Broad river valleys, rich fertile deltas. A delta is a flat plain that has lots of water that flows out to the sea. So on those rich fertile deltas, lots of green plants and growth is able to grow because of how much water there is on that land. And it goes out to the sea. Before water enters the sea, the river creates floodplains and rich deltas. Throughout this journey, it carries dissolved minerals or broken up minerals and salts into the sea. The salty water provides food and warmth needed for life to appear and to flourish. The power of, so remember I ask you to listen for the power of water. So it sculpts the rocks and the earth. It carries minerals and salts into the water. It creates water that allows life to grow on Earth. And the power of the weather comes from the sun, the land, and the water. The sun's heat causes air to flow and swirl around the Earth. Warm, moist air rises from the tropics, and cool, dry air flows down from the poles. So the warmer air is near the equator, or the tropics, and it rises up from the middle of the globe, and the cool air comes down from the North Pole and up from the South Pole. Even the Earth's rotation changes the direction of the moist and the dry winds. So as the Earth is moving, so is the air, and the moist air and the dry air is coming together and forming wind and weather. When they meet, though, they don't really mix. That's when we get high winds and stormy weather, when the dry air and the wet air come close together, but they don't mix, so we get a storm. When cold, dry air meets the warm air, it forces the warmer air to rise up really fast, and that's what causes those dark thundercloud heads in a thunderstorm. All the motion of the ice crystals and water droplets inside the clouds create lots of energy. So the water droplets are moving really fast inside the clouds, and that makes a lot of energy when those drops are bouncing off each other. When the clouds get rid of all this energy, that's when we have the bolts of lightning, because of all that energy of the bouncing molecules and water inside the cloud. It creates energy that creates electricity, and that's what the lightning is that comes out of the clouds. The booming thunderclap that follows the lightning is when the air has been heated up, and the booming thunderclap that follows comes from the waves of air that get bigger after being heated. And then that space that's created when they get bigger, when it comes back in, it makes a big clap, and that's the thunder. One more fact I'll share with you that's at the end of this book. At sunset, or the end of the day when the sun is coming down lower, the angle of the light that passes through the sky is different than when the sun is straight overhead. So at night the sun is lowering, and the angle of light that passes through that sun is different. It's not straight across anymore. And the water vapor in the air and the dust particles reflect blue light in the middle of the day. But at sunset, the light has to travel further because the sun is getting down lower. So it shines through the dust particles and the tiny droplets in the air at a different angle. And then the light looks bright red orange, and we get a beautiful sunset on a really sunny day where the sun has been shining brightly throughout the day. So water causes a lot of different things to happen in our world. Water is a gift from God. It allows life to grow on earth. It allows beautiful nature around us, plants and animals. It allows us to have beautiful things like sunsets, sunrises. It heats up our world. It causes beautiful things like rainbows, and it moves from rivers to streams to seas, from mountains, from clouds to the atmosphere, from liquid to gas to ice water is constantly moving and causing life everywhere we look. And that's why this book is called The Water Dance.